So I told you guys in a video that I did a few videos back that there's a gang here now, which by some media outlets, including Fox, is being called a cartel. I disagree with that term. I don't think it qualifies as a cartel. Fox sometimes tends to over sensationalize things that involve like immigrants and violence that comes from immigrants. But we have what appears to be the first attempted murder by a member of this gang, which I'm going to call it a gang, of Tren De Aragua, taking place in Chicago. Okay, now this was in Little Village, and it's kind of confusing. It does not appear to be like anything that he was doing against any other gang member here. So, as far as gang wars that have started up with this new Venezuelan gang, I saw some of the people speculating about that in the comments section. That doesn't appear to have happened yet. But all the gangs here have ops, and you know that if they don't eventually make some enemies here, it would be the only gang in Chicago without enemies. But anyways, they're reporting that a migrant with ties to a Venezuelan cartel, I'm going to say it's a gang, was arrested this month in connection with a Chicago shooting. So the woman, as far as I know, is still alive. That may not, she was in critical condition though. So I don't know what the outcome of that is or is going to be. But this guy's name is Adelvis Rodriguez Carmona, and sometimes the immigrants are getting fake names, or the police are getting multiple names from them. My own grandparents did change their name, and I don't know how they did it. I don't know if they did it officially or what, but yeah, that's something that a lot of immigrants do. My name on paper is actually an American name, but people that know me personally, my family personally, know like my family's real name from back there. So that's the case with a lot. But so we don't know if that's his actual name, but he was arrested on March 11th by ICE, and also by what's referred to as ERO, which is removal operations. And so on February 4th, Adelvis allegedly got out of a Ford SUV and shot at a 27-year-old woman around 4:37 a.m. in the Little Village neighborhood. Now, for people that don't know, Little Village is like that. Back of the Yards and Humboldt Park are probably the three most violent neighborhoods that are predominantly Latino in Chicago. Back of the Yards has black people too, and Humboldt Park has every race, but in Humboldt Park, there's more Puerto Ricans, but in Little Village, it's predominantly Mexicans. And of all those three, I would say Back of the Yards overall is probably the worst, but Little Village is a close second behind Back of the Yards, and the gangs going at it over there are mainly Latin Kings and 2-6. Back of the Yards doesn't have any Kings, but there's Kings not far from that, literally like right by the border in Gage Park. So anyways, this is according to the U.S. Marshal Service. The victim suffered gunshot wounds throughout her body, and she's in critical, last I heard. Anyways, but Carmona re-entered the SUV and fled the scene after the shooting. So he was first arrested on February 24th by the police in the suburb of Cicero, which was formerly a predominantly Italian suburb to the southwest of Chicago. Now it's predominantly Mexican. He was charged with aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, not possessing a firearm ID card, driving without a license or insurance, and possession of adult-use cannabis in a motor vehicle. So officials said that he was later released, but did not specify a date. An aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, and he was released. Okay, so he was arrested again on February 26th in connection with the Little Village shooting by the U.S. Marshals and the Great Lakes Fugitive Task Force in coordination with Chicago police. He was charged with attempted first-degree murder, aggravated assault with a weapon, and possession of a weapon. So they said this Venezuelan non-citizen represented a significant threat to the residents of our communities. According to the ERO Chicago Assistant Field Office Director, Ramon Hernandez, he said not only is he a validated member of a transnational street gang, but he also displayed a willingness to unlawfully discharge a firearm in public. So he said ERO Chicago will continue to prioritize public safety by removing such threats from our streets. So the officers arrested him back on March 11th. He is currently being held in the Dodge County Detention Facility in Wisconsin prior to his immigration removal proceedings. So it appears that he may be deported. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but yeah, they may deport this guy. Now, if he can just come right back into the country, which is highly possible at this point, under a different name, That's something that a lot of guys are easily able to do. So this is one of the dilemmas that they have, and this is, like I said, it's a very thorny issue that people have very strong feelings about. But that's where this particular case is right now. And what I would like to see, though, is them get to the bottom of exactly why he opened fire on this woman. And so I don't know if deporting him is actually the best idea at this point because, before they figure out what exactly went on, I think it would be better to interrogate him and try to get that information out of him. And if they send him back and then he can just come right back in, that's not really a punishment. There's been a lot of shakeups going on with the migrants. A lot of them have been moved out of Park District facilities. A lot of them have been moved out of shelters. They're saying they're letting the families stay, but this is an issue that's affecting the city more and more, and it's affecting big time the politics. Okay, because the mayor is taking a tremendous amount of heat for how he's handling this from both sides. On the one hand, he's taking heat from people who say that the migrants are not being treated well enough. They're being kept in these conditions inside these shelters that are inhumane. Disease is rampant. There's been a measles outbreak and stuff like this. And then he's getting heat from the other side. Interestingly, he's getting a tremendous amount of heat from the black community here in Chicago. That's a base that he needs to win. That he needs to win re-election. Black people here are, I think, 30-something% of the population. And you can't really win an election here without at least some of their votes. It's very difficult. This is not, Chicago's population breakdown is not like it is in America at large. This is a different world as far as demographic percentages. So, I don't know who he's going to be running against in the next election, but I think he's going to need some of these black votes. And many of them have been voicing a tremendous amount of discontent with the fact that they're seeing the migrants get so many resources. And by resources, I mean just accommodations, free housing, free food and stuff that they have been trying to get for really generations. So a lot of them, they elect these Democratic politicians and these black politicians to get these resources to their communities. And then they see their communities still are not getting them. And people that are, not even American citizens and not black are getting them. And in Chicago, people say that, I'm playing the race card or I'm bringing race into it. But in Chicago, that is a big factor in politics. It's always been that. And not even just between races. As I mentioned in my Chicago history videos all the way back in the early part of the 1900s, it was an issue even between ethnic groups, like amongst whites. And that's the case here too. Like even within the same so-called race, there's oftentimes like competition for resources and stuff because resources here are tight. Schools don't get enough funding. The police don't get enough funding. Resources here are very tight, and that's a situation you have in a lot of Democratic-run localities where a lot of the tax money is sent to various social programs that. That's a whole other conversation about whether or not those are beneficial, but it stretches the resources thin. And when it comes time to, put money into something where the money is actually going to make a direct impact, a lot of times that money is not there. So it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off because this is a whole other debate about economic philosophy and whether or not incentivizing businesses to expand by lowering their tax rate and giving them financial incentives to set up shop here in a particular city is outweighs the detriment to the social services that could be provided with that same money. That's a very long, complicated economic conversation, but Chicago is dealing with this right now with these migrants because, okay, the resources are already stretched thin. Now this huge burden on the resources of the city is being placed by basically the need to accommodate people that are coming in droves. Chicago has a total population, I think, of about 3 million. And we're talking about, you're not talking about Cook County total, just the city of Chicago proper. And there's been about 30,000 Venezuelan migrants that have come in here, not just Venezuelans, but just migrants in general that have come in so far. About 3,000 have asked to go to other cities, but that still leaves about 27,000 here. So we're talking approximately 1% of Chicago's population has been added so far. So again, this is no, people may interpret this as like a dig at immigrants or a dig at the Venezuelans. I've said time and time again that my family came here the same way. Like they didn't apply, nothing. They just came. So and many of my relatives had to leave. My dad's cousin Steve, some of my relatives, some of my uncles and aunts had to. They tried to come here, but they were not able to come, and so they had to go to other countries. But my family did the same thing, so I totally relate to it. It's just it's not a black or white issue, I think, because you know, it creates difficulties on every side, and they're coming because there were difficulties back there. So I mean, it's just this is a very difficult issue, man. But I sympathize with everybody involved. But the gangs here, though, is going to be one thing that we're going to have to plan on how to deal with, because that's some to this point is something that has not been dealt with. So you guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man. There's your boy Chicago News. I'm out.